Thank you very much, Professor Michael Chege, my senior when I was a mono at the university as a teacher. He was my mentor, one of my mentors. I want to acknowledge the family of our President Mwai Kibaki, to acknowledge the leaders who are present here, and because the chairman of the party was able to recognize people, I will not go through name by name again, and to recognize all who have come to attend this important second lecture of a person in Kenya, on the continent, we hold very dearly. In terms of my brief presentation, when I was asked to say something about the Constitution, about the legal framework that President Kibaki used to underpin his development agenda, his leadership, I thought I would first of all begin something that also Professor Michael Chege briefly did, to begin by how did I experience President Mwai Kibaki's statecraft as I served with him and for him in several capacities. I was privileged to work with Mzee within the pro-democracy movement, beginning NAC with a C, National Alliance for Kenya, for National Alliance, then NAC with a K, then NAC with RC, then PNU, and served also in the Office of the President as an assistant minister, and later as an advisor on constitutional, parliamentary, and youth affairs, and also as his cabinet minister in two dockets, that is lands and environment and natural resources. Indeed, I served in two ministries for 17 months simultaneously, so that I had a day shift and a night shift, until I asked him, had he forgotten that he was supposed to appoint somebody else. So that's a lot of time working with the president. And so what did I observe during that period? I think one, whether in ordinary social conversation, during the pro-democracy meetings and discussions, in planning sessions at the Office of the President, where Ambassador Mudaura was our leader, those of us who helped Mzee, in cabinet meetings, Kibaki focused on ideas, and this is something that, on issues, this is something that Professor Chege stated. Actually, he was not a man for casual talk. He was a man of ideas. He didn't like rudderless talk, unfocused talk. And even senior as he was, he listened to others, he absorbed their input, and he sought the heart of the matter. He had lesser focus, seeking what is the solution. And he was able to summarize a discussion and spot the emerging consensus. And I think some of why what he did was successful was listening to people and being able to say, this is the emerging consensus, so that therefore a decision could be owned, even or especially by his subordinates. Of course, he didn't suffer fools. And even though he was an individual of superior intellect, he also respected other intellects. So it was a pleasure to attend cabinet to attend cabinet because you knew that, whatever was your cabinet paper, your cabinet contributions, they would count. They would be listened to, and they would be input towards the decision. And even for those of us who served, who are present here, that is something that they can attest to. He valued meritocracy, professionalism, and loyalty was counted after ability. And I think, therefore, the success that is attributed to him was that identification of merit, professionalism, and then deploying it for the work ahead and the necessary work. One of the things that has been said, again, which was responsible for Mzee's success, was he could confidently delegate so that when you got the job, you felt empowered and you knew your work meant something, not only to your boss and not only to the people that we served, but also to yourself, so that you at the end of the day, when you went to bed, you said you were part of building the country. And you had security of office as well as tenure, so that you didn't, perhaps think that the following day the job will disappear. And so in the stint that we worked with him, I can say I felt I was a real, because whatever it is that I brought to the table was useful, was used. And so even when I went to become a governor in Makueni, I thought that one could cascade that culture and modus operandi of statescraft. Perhaps sometimes Mzee could overtrust, and particularly when he was unwell for a while, there were, some of the people who perhaps could go beyond what, if he was completely well, they would have dared do. But there was always a mudaura to kind of correct some of such people. Again, Mzee was very, for him, fidelity to the rule of law and to institutions. That meant a lot to him, because whatever economic policies you have, if you do not underpin them, if you don't use the law as a foundation for them, if you don't use institutions as a foundation for them, then not much will work. And even in terms of his fidelity to, to the law, to the rule of law, we witnessed, and we did know that he was soft and strict, but we witnessed that if you went off board, you did things that were not right, he would open the door for you or show you the door until, the law ran its course. And I think that was an important strategy for people knowing that you must serve with responsibility. I also noted that as we worked with him, that when there was any failure, he owned it. He did not throw his helpers under the bus. And I think even in the very difficult times of 2007-8, one thought that that's a very important mark of a leader. So in this journey of working under him, I got the impression that from a very early time, or early in his career, he wanted to one day be Kenya's leader, from Makerere University, from the KANU executive days up to 2002. And so there was a lot of intention building capacity for that eventuality. When one takes charge and one knows what to do, one is not beating about the bush. So he led to serve. That was my summary of somebody who leads to serve and somebody who exemplifies genuine love for his country and people. Now, when he comes into office, 2003, the Independence Constitution is in tatters. It is an old shadow of itself through about 30 or so odd amendments. The economy, as a professor said, and as is common knowledge, was in ICU. It was ravaged. And I think like James Carville, who was Bill Clinton's strategist in the 1992 elections, MK, if I can use that short form for somebody we love, Kibaki, would tell the country in his words, it is the economy, stupid. And I think because of that laser focus, you know, about the economy, he mobilized Kenyans to realize that they have to do whatever it takes to revive that economy. And so when he talked about tax ad infinitum, tulipe kodi, he wanted us to finance our development through our budget and through our taxes. And of course, people wonder, didn't he have some juicy things to talk about? Just lipa kodi, lipa kodi, lipa kodi. But then, when we began to realize that the taxes were being put to proper use, then people were even in a hurry, in a rush to pay taxes. I think observing Mzee, he always matched policy and law, because there is a tradition in some countries, in some periods, eras, epochs, to just pass law without, first of all, developing the policy which is broader and which is going to be crystallized into law. And even what Professor Nyang' Nyong'o was going to speak about, economic recovery strategy for wealth, the employment creation, as well as the vision, Kenya Vision 2030, those were done so that the sequel laws would be in sync with the recovery that was intended. And so one can say, in terms of the constitution and supportive legislation, there are three phases, 2003 to 2010, when a lot of those laws and policies are to undo one-party excesses. Also to be the basis of reviving the economy, to be laws about creating democratic institutions, even in advance of the passage of the Constitution, laws about advancing human rights, and creating institutions, processes of running a modern state. Like when, for example, you have like performance management, which Ambassador was a champion of, so that there can be a new way of doing service delivery. When you have the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights Act 2003, when you have the anti-corruption, initial anti-corruption laws, Public Officers and Ethics Act, Anti-Corruption, Economic Crimes Act. So you can see that even before the Constitution comes, there are now these modernizing laws. If one can, 5 minutes, if one can give them that name. So then we have the making of the Constitution from April 2003, when bombers was resumed, because President Kibaki, President Moi had suspended bombers because of the elections, and so in April 2003 it is revived. And so in terms of the constitution making, which took 7 years, from 2003 to 2005, there's the first phase leading to the referendum, and phase 2 to 2009 to 2010 during the Zamba-Kitonga Committee of Experts era. And of course, a lot of things have been said about the challenges of the constitution-making epoch. But I think if we were to agree, and I think this is something that is widely agreed on, that the 2010 constitution has been hailed as one of the most progressive on the African continent, with maybe that of South Africa. If that is a proper verdict, then it means that President Kibaki delivered this progressive constitution, and whatever issues that attended this delivery, a difficult delivery, no doubt, but we can only credit him without, you know, despite these problems, we can credit President Kibaki for really being the father, or, so that I'm not gender insensitive, the parent of modern Kenya. I think one can't take away that from President Kibaki. And within the 2010 constitution, and we did, you know, interact quite a bit during the pro-democracy days with the president, so he felt the pulse of civil society, of those young people. Sometimes some of them were not very charitable, but in this constitution, it now tells us that sovereign power belongs to the people, and Professor, you know, talked about the Bill of Rights, one of the most progressive, leadership and integrity, separation of powers, devolution, public finance, national security being brought within the purview of the Constitution, even the creation of a fourth arm of government, the constitutional commissions, the independent offices, even having an amendment procedure which makes sure that you cannot just amend the Constitution if you wake up and you want to do so. It is a fact that that document, and as again Professor said, it is a document that it tells you what you must do. So if you don't do it, it is intentional. One of the aspects in the Constitution which really helped us tremendously was when in the 5th schedule, it is indicated, according to also Article 261, there are timelines to the passage of laws to give life to many parts of the Constitution. And that is why between a very, very short period, 2010 and 2013, you know, you have legislation about citizenship, about National Human Rights Equality Commission, legislation on land, ethics and corruption, new leadership, legislation. And so when you look at the 5th schedule, you can see the amount of work which was done, and the ambassador sitting here in his quietness was very instrumental. Of course, there was the Attorney General, and there was the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Martha, Kiraitu Martha, later Mutula, even later Wamalwa, and the Office of the President, the relevant ministries. So we, you know, those laws, even the ABC Act, legislation of political parties, recall of MPs, to wind up, yes. So, yes, I'm winding up. So there was therefore that mechanism to make sure that the laws had to be passed. And there was a lot of work. And he very intentionally said, we not only must pass the laws that are 1 year, 18 months, whatever. He said even the ones for 5 years, prepare for them. And that is why in the sequel administration, the administration of Uhuru Kenyatta, some of the laws that were passed were inherited from work that had been done. Therefore, to conclude, so that I don't get into trouble with my senior, maybe when we continue to look at our constitution, perhaps maybe after 2027, we may want to go back to what about the parliamentary system? What about proportional representation? What about strengthening devolution so that we don't have like 47 entities that pay more of the salaries than having provision for development. And strictly speaking, because of all this, that work was done under his leadership, stewardship, we have no deficit of laws. It is a deficit of culture and practice of implementation, so that we have a progressive constitution, and here and in many places in Africa, there is still the one-party ethos guiding the implementation of whatever happens, even when they are progressive constitution. So I thank you very much.
I'm very reluctant to tell Professor Kibwana to sit down because he is always extremely interesting and worth listening to. Professor Kibwana